Hello! It's B. Radley here, and I have so much excitement in my voice because MLS Fantasy Soccer has begun. We are starting. I'm excited. I've played it for, 5 years now. If it's even been out that many years. I don't know. But I've been playing it every year I have since I found out about it, and I'm just so excited. I just bought this webcam, so I figured I might as well use it because I searched MLS fantasy videos on YouTube and there were 0 at the moment coming out. So I thought I would just like to discuss a few things, mainly for beginners that haven't really played yet. There might be a few of you out there, there might not be any, don't know. But just to go over some things, because I've invited people to join our league before, and they say, oh, I'm terrible at it, I don't know what to do, I don't know the players. That's okay. You really don't necessarily need to know all the players. When you log in, you go to this site and you can sort players by all sorts of different, things. Team selected by percent. That's one of the best, just because it shows you what everybody else is doing. Oh, gotta introduce you to my puppy. Hi, this is Ashes. She's gonna be my helper because she doesn't like being left alone. So she has to kind of stay in my lap or she just cries, and that would not make for a good video. So, first off, I think we're going to look at, we'll just kind of look at overall who's being picked up and any concerns that I have for you. There are a few players that have a very high percentage of people picking them up that you might want to recheck yourself. Some people that might not actually end up being starters, and you're wasting a roster spot and a few $1 million on a person that might not be playing. So, first of all, goalies. I think goalies are pretty well sorted, I would say. Ousted right now is top with 25.9%. Good goalie, great goalie last year. Vancouver had an awesome defense pretty much the whole way through the season. I don't have exact statistics, but I know he was a great option. Then we got Saunders. I think he's up there just because he's 5.0. I think a lot of people are maybe expecting New York City FC to be a pretty stellar team this year. I kind of am, but on the defense side, not so much. Now, that doesn't mean Saunders isn't a good pick because he will get lots of bonus points. Check the tab for rules, and then scroll down to scoring. You'll be able to kind of look at what gets people points. It's pretty important when you're picking up players. But this year, they've made some changes that kind of spread the point system out a little bit. People that in the past haven't gotten a lot of points are going to get more now. So they've generally been cheaper in the past, and they are this year too, like defensive midfielders, guys like that. So, okay, so that was goalies. Defenders is where I think some of the some people might be making a bit of a mistake, in my personal opinion. Watching a few preseason games, being on a site called myfantasyboss.com, probably the best site out there for MLS fantasy stuff. There's a constant conversation going at the bottom of it that you can join, without thinking about it. So the first guy that is owned by 30.8% of teams, which, it's funny. I think it's a joke. It's kind of like Duty was last year. This guy, I'm not sure how you say his name. It's probably Gillen. For FC Dallas, he's 4.0. That's why everybody has him, because everybody likes to have junk players so they can stack their team elsewhere. And it's a good strategy because, a lot of times if you have 4 bench players that aren't doing anything, but sitting on your bench gaining points, a lot of time, you might end up getting a little bit of money from them if their price goes up. But odds are you're kind of not putting the best possible team out that you could. If you could put that money elsewhere into your starters, it kind of stacks up your team, especially this year. All right, so Modou Kah from Vancouver is second with 30.6% of teams having him at this current juncture. I think that might be a mistake, ladies and gentlemen. From what I've been reading and hearing, Kah, he did great last year when he played, and he was not always the starter. There was another guy, I don't remember his name, but I don't think he's with Vancouver this year, that had the normal starting spot, but he kept getting injured. And Kyle would be a great fill-in. He scored a few goals. He did a great job when he was in. But this year, they picked up another guy, or have another guy named Parker. I don't know. I don't think he's new to the team. I think they had him last year, but yeah, they're the same price. But what I've seen and read from preseason and fantasy advice on other websites is that Kah is probably not going to be the starter. It might be this Parker guy. What I would do, if you want Kah, that's cool. If you want to keep him on your bench, I think that's the best way to start the season would be to keep him on your bench, or have a backup just in case he doesn't play. Just because, let's see, when do they play? They play at 5:30 on Sunday, so there's only 2 games after that. So if the starting lineup comes out at 5 o'clock, you're going to have a defender from Seattle, LA, Sporting Kansas, or DC United to plug in there. Otherwise, you're going to be getting a 0 for a guy that's not playing. It might be the same thing for Parker. I have him on my team currently. Watson is a lock-in, but he's incredibly expensive. So it might not be the best option to have either of them right now just to start the season, or just to make sure that you have a backup. Otherwise, you will be frustrated and angry that why didn't Modou Kah play this week? I don't understand. So it is important to look at stats from last year, but it's also important to try to figure out who the starters are going to be. I mean, the season is, what, a week away? It's crazy. I'm excited. But, okay. Ellis, same thing. Not totally sure on the Kansas City starters yet. They have a new guy. Let's find his name, because that would be a good thing to add. It's another guy I'm not sure how to pronounce. Nuno Coelho. I'm going with that. Same price. Actually, he's a little more expensive than Ellis. And that might kind of give you an indication that he might actually be a starter. But they also have Opara in there. The preseason game that I watched, Myers and Sinovic were playing their respective roles on the outsides, and they looked great. They actually paired up for a goal. They did awesome. Beasler's a lock-in, you know that, but it's kind of, it might be a little bit up in the air right now as to who the rest of their starters are going to be. The other center back, and I don't know if Myers and Sinovic have their spots. I would imagine they do, just because they've had so much success with those two on the outsides. I mean, they get up often. They're both fast. They're both great players. But Ellis was kind of a fill-in after Opara got hurt last year, because they lost Collins to Orlando City. And, you know, he did good. He really filled in well. Beasler was going a lot also. They had a lot of rotation going on in their defense last year, but I will be interested to see how they start the season. I wouldn't bet money on the fact that Ellis is going to be a starter, though. So if you do have him on your team, you might want to change him out, but if you know more than I do, which is possible, very possible, yeah, just stick with your guns. If you really want him, take him. All right, so next down the list is Harris, FC Dallas. Still not sure what's going on there either. He's cheap, which is great, but they have a lot of great defensive players. They have Hedges and Lloyd, and last year they kind of played center back, but this year, again, who knows? Lloyd might get pushed back out to the wing. Don't know yet. I mean, it's one of those things that once the season finally starts, we're going to be able to see, okay, these are the real starters. Preseason can be a little hard to follow sometimes because coach wants to see different players in different positions. Like in fantasy football, you know, they always put all their starters in like a week before the preseason ends, and you can really get to see, okay, this guy's starting over this guy and such and such. But soccer is not so defined, and even during the regular season, sometimes things change up without any warning, and it frustrates you because you didn't know about it. But it's just the way it is. You kind of have to deal with it. So I think we'll go on to midfielders. And this is a different situation. I have a few opinions on some of the higher percentage guys. Nagbe, you gotta love him. I mean, he's done nothing but get better this season as his career has gone on. He draws a lot of fouls. He always seems to be a target. So with the new point systems, where you get points depending on how many fouls you draw, I think it's 4 for a point. So Nagbe will do pretty well in that category. I think he's a really strong pick for a lot of people, and he's only $9 million. He's may not score a lot of goals, but yeah, I like him a lot. He's not on my team, but I do like him. Second is where I personally have a problem. Not a problem. Feilhaber. One of the best fantasy options last year, which is shocking because he wasn't always playing an offensive role. A lot of times he was hanging back a little further, but he was still getting goals. He was still getting points. He was doing free kicks and crosses when Zusi wasn't there. So he is priced at an expensive $11 million this year. 21.3% of teams have him on their team right now. And I think that's a little crazy. I know he had a great year, and I'm excited for him. I was very excited for him. I hope he does well this year. But my thoughts, Sporting Kansas just picked up Brad Davis. Brad Davis is fantastic at free kicking. In fact, that's probably the best part about Brad Davis's game. And they've also got Zusi coming back. I think Zusi last year got burnt out. He was doing a ton with the national team. He never really got a chance to rest and get prepared for the season, in my personal opinion. So I think Zusi will be back strong this year. I hope. I love Zusi. Zusi's awesome. He's one of my favorite players in the MLS. But everything I'm saying here makes Feilhaber a little less valuable, in my opinion. Again, if you like him and you want him on your team, that's awesome. I have no problem with that. It's just he's not on mine. And I might be wrong. That's the thing with fantasy. You never know. You can say all you want. You can do all the statistics you want, but that doesn't prove the future. You can't predict who's going to do well, who's going to start off awesome. Finlay had a great last year. He's owned by 17.0% of teams. Ethan Finlay, if you don't know him, you probably didn't play last year if you're new. He was great. He plays for Columbus Crew. He was a bargain last year because you could get him cheap, and he was outscoring his midfield counterpart, Higuain, who is awesome, little short guy playing big. But Finlay, he's a winger, and wingers are great. He and Kamara just work very well together. But I have some concerns. With the new point systems they put out, Finlay might not see as much of a benefit as a lot of other people. He's still going to get assists and stuff like that, but I think there's better options out there for $10.5 million. That's a lot of money. And we'll just do one more. We'll go with Shipp. 16% of people own him right now. And Shipp, you gotta love Shipp. I know Chicago was incredibly disappointed when he got sent off to Montreal. And I thought, oh, that's a bummer, because now that he's in Montreal, he might really not get a chance to play. He might not get to do much. But preseason has shown differently. I had Piatti from Montreal a lot last year. Piatti did great. He was always getting points, lots of bonuses for attacking and goals and assists. But now Shipp is going to be filling that attacking mid role. Piatti's going out to the wing, and Shipp he doesn't look like he would be anything special, but he is. He's amazing. He has a way of finding people that are open, playing amazing through balls. I have him on my team. I feel like he's a bargain at $8.0 million. It's incredibly cheap compared to a lot of midfielders, especially that get up in the attack all the time. He's great at corners, free kicks. He'll probably be taking them only because he's not much of a threat in the box. He's not going to win a whole lot of headers that get him a goal. But I think he's awesome. He's one of my favorites in the MLS as well, just because he's short and little and doesn't look like he'd be much, but he is. All right, so now having said that, we're going to move on to forwards, which there's a lot of good forwards. It seems to be where the most expensive players are this year. So obviously the best player from last year, points-wise, and just, man, blew everybody away. Giovinco for Toronto just lit it up last year. I mean, the atomic ant, as they call him, was amazing. And he is $11.5 million. And 67% of teams own him. Hi, puppy. He's amazing. I think it's crazy not to have him on your team, except for the fact that they have, I think it's 8 away games in a row. It's a lot. But even away, Giovinco is somebody that will score. And it's one of those things, I remember last year when I didn't have him, I would always look at the games and the scores and be like, oh my gosh, Giovinco scored again? Are you serious? Why isn't he on my team? Didn't have the money for him, so I would keep, playing without him. And eventually on a wild card week, I had to make room for him because he was just unstoppable. I mean, I don't know what it is about him. He's just amazing. Going down the list, we have Larin from Orlando City. 26% of teams have him. He's $9 million. He was a rookie last year, and I know a lot of people are always concerned about rookie slumps. I personally wouldn't be too worried about that. He's a name that not a lot of people really knew last year. Not a lot of people really knew who the Orlando City starter up top was going to be. I know it circled around through a bunch of people, but Larin was the one that won the spot. And they have Kaká. He's going to get good service all the time. I think he's a good option. I do. He's not on my team, but that doesn't mean anything. He's good. Next, Kamara. What can you say about Kamara from Columbus? He's amazing. $11 million, 21.2% of teams have him right now. He's awesome. I can't say much else. He's another one of those guys that I feel like you just have to have. He's in his prime. He's doing great, scoring goals. He's just so hard to stop in the air. I mean, he's a giant. Great with his head. I think you just have to have him, especially with Finlay and hopefully Higuain being a little healthier and better this year. You have to have him, in my opinion. If there was one person I say you have to have on your team, it's Kamara. Yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say about him. Next is a junk player from Seattle. We're not gonna talk about him. Skipping down to David Villa from New York City FC. $11 million. About 15% of teams have him, and I also have him as well. My 3 forwards actually are Giovinco, Kamara, and Villa. So it's stacked up front, and I'm going to be playing 3 forwards every single week, which means there might be some weak spots in other parts of my team, but I don't care because those guys are amazing. So yeah, David Villa. He's got Pirlo this year. Lampard, I don't know if he's going to start the season or not, but there's just so much good offensive stuff going on at New York City FC. It's hard not to get excited about it. And to have David Villa in the mix, he's just got a nose for the goal. He's another little guy like Giovinco and Shipp that have a nose for the goal. They know soccer. They have a soccer brain. They know what to do when they get in certain positions, and it's just impossible to stop him. I strongly advise having him. Next down the list is Drogba from Montreal. Good option, I think. It's kind of hard to tell. He came on last year and completely changed Montreal for the better. He just started scoring insane, crazy, awesome goals. And he's getting older. I'm not sure how old he is. I could probably look it up, but I'm not going to. Owned by 13.1. He's 11.5 though. I mean, we didn't get a huge sample size last year. What we did see was great, but how will he do through an entire season? I don't know. He might start out great. He's only just started training, I think, with Montreal. Now, a guy like that probably doesn't need a whole lot of training. But, if you want to take a gamble and go with somebody different than probably most of the other people with Giovinco, Kamara, Villa, Drogba's not a bad option. I don't think at all. Last guy we'll talk about is Morris. Jordan Morris from Seattle. $8.5 million. We know Obafemi Martins is gone. I'm sure most of you that played last year at one point had Obafemi Martins on your team because he's just a fun guy. Always does his backflips and stuff like that when he scores. Morris will, it's kind of tough. He's going to be a player that either does awesome this year or kind of disappoints. He's got a chance. I hope he grabs it and takes it. I know he's been doing pretty decent with the national team. He scored that one awesome goal in Mexico, against Mexico. So my hopes are really high for him. I hope he does well. He's one of those guys that I had on my team for a while, and then I changed it around again, and he was kind of the one I got rid of. You think, a lot of times when you're paying more money for a player that they're going to do better, but that's not always the case. And Morris is one of those guys I think is a really good bargain. He's got Dempsey that he's going to be working with up top. He's going to learn a lot this year, and I think he'll get a chance to score a lot of goals, and I hope he does. So for now, first video, I think that's all we're going to talk about. If you're new to the game, stick with me. I'm going to try to put out a few more videos before the season actually starts so you can set up your team, get it set up well. I hope you guys play. I hope you guys pay attention to your teams and watch as many games as you can like I'm going to. This is like one of my passions in life. It's like Christmas is great, but once the MLS Fantasy Soccer site is available for me to make my team, I get a whole lot more excited about that. So, yeah, I hope you were helped at least a little bit by what I said. If you have questions, feel free to ask them in the comments or go to MLS Fantasy Boss. There's always tons of people that are willing to help and add their 2 cents to your questions there. Reddit's always good too. So, yeah, thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoy the season. Bye, guys.